Hi, Tina Ketchie Stearns here, and I am so excited to have once again my friend Sharena Connor with me today. Hello, Miss Sharena.
Hello, how are
You
you?
look so pretty.
Thank you, thank you. I know that walking is doing me good too every morning, I tell you.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we talked about last week. So,
hmm
Sharena is here to share with us some maybe unique things that we need to be aware of, white people need to be aware of when it comes to end of life in the African American community. So, there's some unique things that we just need to raise our awareness about. So, she's got a few points she's going to make, and I'm just going to let you get rolling with whatever wherever you want to start with it. So thank you for being here first of all, and thank you for sharing and helping to educate us.
Not a problem at all. I mean, I'm enjoying these series that we're having together. And I did make some bullet points about some pretty, the most important focuses about advanced care planning and healthcare power of attorney, living wills, and end of life care, and just kind of wrapping those all up in one big ball and speaking about the focus and focusing on the things that can be barriers for the African American community. The first thing is being the family barriers. Another barrier is fear and mistrust.
Well, hold tight. What do you mean family barriers? What do you mean
So
by
the family barriers. So when it comes to advanced care planning and healthcare power of attorney, I mean, we have a very complex family structure. And so that means, basically who's in charge of who and who makes all the decisions for who. It's a little bit more complex in our family dynamics, just culturally. We just have a little bit more complexity when it comes to that. But the biggest thing, and I did make some notes because I wanted to make sure I'm being a good steward of our time, so I wanted to hit on the highlights. But the main thing is not giving up. And when we talk about doing healthcare power of attorney and end of life care or advanced care planning, for us, it sounds very much like we're giving up, like we're talking about the end, and we're not so quick to get to that point. We're not so quick to get to the end. We want to fight. We want to do everything that we can to stay alive and be there for our families because we want to be able to be there to take care of them, and we have fear of not being there and being able to be that support for them, and that scares us more than anything. So having those conversations, we are much better at it now in our culture, but it's still a very difficult conversation to have, is because we're not going to talk about death and dying. I mean, and listen, you're gonna make it come quicker if you don't talk about that stuff. I mean, it's just it is very, very, very much part of who we are as a people and a culture when we start talking about end of life care. But as we
and
become
and we were talking about this yesterday, and
yes,
what I was saying to you was, well, that sounds kind of similar to the way a lot of white people would feel about it, but you were sharing with me why it is different. And so kind of get into that.
right. And again, it goes back to that family concern. We're not going to talk about end of life care and doing healthcare power of attorneys because the elders in our family, all of the siblings in our families, we're going to try to be around as long as we can because we need that support, and we want to make sure that everybody's feeling secure and safe, and so it's just not a conversation that's very fluid because we hold on to that family structure and how things are right now.
And
And
if
talk
you were saying it was about with injustices and how African American people can be mistreated and that kind of thing, it's really a lot about we want to be there to make sure you stay safe. And so I don't
exactly
want to think about dying because I need to be
right.
here to make sure you're safe.
Right. Again, it's very much about that family structure and the culture and our culture and being there and being that support system for each other. Because who else is going to do it? So we are much better about having a conversation now, but it's still a taboo. It's still very, just it's not very fluid as I as I would like to see it be, because again, working in the healthcare field and everything, we hear it all the time, we talk about it all the time, and so it's very important. But it's just getting that education out there, which leads me to the next focus of why, which is that mistrust, that fear of doing these. So just historically, it's only been not that many years ago that we've even become knowledgeable of these resources that we also have access to. In the 50s, 60s, and even 70s, and probably early 80s, we weren't being educated. We didn't have resources in our community talking about advanced care planning. And so some wonderful healthcare providers have realized that, hey, we have a gap in who we are servicing. We need to get out there in the community because we have this group of people and this group of people that we are not servicing, and they are a part of our community. So what you don't know, you don't know. And we talked about that too. I mean, so it wasn't even something that we were very knowledgeable of. And if we did have, when I say we, in our culture, in my community, in my family, even if we heard or was even mention of healthcare plan and advanced care directors or anything like that, it was for upper middle class white or rich white. They were the ones who did those types of things because they could afford to do those types of things. Like, we had no clue that these services were also available to us, and sometimes at little or no fee or cost. And that's huge. That's huge. And so,
and because there was a day that you did have to go to an attorney to get a living will and healthcare power of attorney document done, but you don't have to do that now.
But you don't have
to
to do
go
that.
to your local hospice, and I will
Correct.
bet dollars to donuts that they do those things for free.
Correct.
Now, I will say you probably need an attorney, not necessarily, but you probably need an attorney for last will and testament. So
Absolutely.
who gets the car, who gets the house, who gets the land,
Right.
and a durable power of attorney, which has to do with who is able to work with the finances of this person.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
living will and healthcare power of attorney, those are for
You don't need anyone, you don't need an attorney to do that. And that is huge. And again, it goes back to also trusting the system, that system has our best interests at heart as well, because typically it has been about, the middle upper white or rich white, the upper class white. And so, getting over that barrier, getting over the hump, as I like to say, and taking advantage of those resources. Again, it's just going to be communicating, which again, I commend the healthcare system, having people now recognizing that, that there was a huge gap, and it's so much better than it was, and reaching out to the community. All of the community, not just one side or one half, that side of 52 as well. And we'll talk about that maybe one day. But the third thing is, again, honing on the education and the knowledge, to really improve the education and the communication around we call it POA, but healthcare power of attorney and advanced care planning. We also need to see more of us providing that education and knowledge. And some people will say, well, what difference does that make? Well, I always tell my friends who most of them are white, and I say, okay, imagine being in a healthcare system where it's predominantly Black, and you have nobody that looks like you except maybe one person that you get to try to relate to, and they're not the main person, they're not the only person on the team. Like, what would that feel like? Just kind of take a moment and think about that. So, and then when you're talking about a healthcare system who has been predominantly white and has not always treated us fairly, they have always cared for us with the same care that they care for. So you have all of these things compiled on top of the reason why it's so difficult to have the conversation within the African American community or any other ethnic group. I have an Indian friend, and we talk about these same things, and it's very different for the Indian, meaning not Native American, but Indian people. So you know, when we have knowledge of something, to us it sounds, we've talked about this before, Tina. To us it just makes sense. It's like, why can't people just get it? But we have to be very sensitive to, okay, who's telling them this information, and is anybody talking to them that lives in their neighborhood or in their circle? And we've talked about that the last time. Being in that circle is very important. So those are some things that can really help with that increase of advanced care planning, going into assisted living. And it doesn't have to take decades and hundreds of years, but it is a gradual process. And if we just be sensitive to that and be mindful of that, then it won't be so hard to have these conversations and be open to the fact that we're different in some things, and it's okay. It's okay culturally.
And there's one other thing I want to be sure we do, because we're going to have to stop, is typically in the white community, you pick a healthcare power of attorney agent to speak for you if you cannot speak for yourself, and they can't get that person, then there's a second, and sometimes there's even a third. In the Black community, it's hard to pick just one person, because when you talk about who's going to make your decisions for you, it could be every neighbor that lives on your street, correct?
Correct. Even with my aunt, and I can speak for, like with my grandmother and my mom, I mean, my goodness, I mean, you have to go through the whole chain of command. It's the aunts, it's the uncles, it's the brothers, it's the sisters, it's the cousins, it's the neighbors that, she's been living beside for 100 years. Because they want to know what you're doing to her, what is happening? Like, we haven't, she didn't want that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, it's my grandma. Like, I know what she wants, So yes, it's having that conversation. It is it's very different. But yes, everybody, when we say everybody wants to know the information, it is. And so it is helpful to have those one or two that are like they are kind of the lead in the family. But then we are very careful to make sure, and I say we because I was that lead for my family, very careful to incorporate to constantly educate and talk to and communicate, because that can become a very big problem, because assigning one person to be the person to speak to all of those things, or the wishes of the person that is ill in the family, it's very uncomfortable, and it can be, well, just to put it plainly, it could be a mess.
A hot mess, that's right.
It's just important for the person that is being diagnosed, or the person that's going to assisted living, or the person that these things are happening to. You just have to make sure that person also makes it aware, makes it known to everybody that she can speak for me. I have talked to her. She knows exactly what I want. So it's getting better among our culture with having that conversation, because we realize of how difficult it is at the end of life, whether that journey is a short-term or long-term journey. We realize how important it is now to have these things in place. Yeah. And some of it has been just because of trial and error. We've had other loved ones to die, and we saw how our aunts, the older people handle that, and we're like, oh, we don't want that to happen. We don't want it to be like that. So
yeah. Okay, well, so this is not the last one. We call this Shatina time, right?
Yes.
Sharena and Tina, Shatina time. So we will have you back again, because there's so much for us all to learn. But thank you so much for being here. That was really awesome.
Thank you. I so appreciate it.
And just rewatch this if you have African American friends and you're trying to figure out how do I best support them when they're going through an end of life situation. Hopefully some of Sharena's points will help you get through that. So yes, thank you. And thank you, Sharena.
All right. Talk to you soon, baby.
We will see you guys next week. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.